I was like, yeah, you are. Just break up with him. Is this like a premonition? Are they trying to tell me something? What is going on? And so I didn't want to finish it, but I did. Oh my God. Eliza's talking to me. Oh, maybe I should try something different. But I'm like, no, don't try anything different. Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we are doing my July reading wrap up. All the books that I read in July. I had a really good reading month because I found a new 5-star, which we'll get into. A book so good it is taking the spot of number 2 on my top favorite books I've read this year. So good. But let's get into the stats. This month I read 8 books. I read 3 mysteries, 3 romances, 1 fantasy, and 1 literary fiction. So without further ado, let's get into the books. The first book that I read this month was Tempest Rising by Tracy Deebs. This is the book that I talked about in my Mermaid Books video that is out of print, and so I was able to find this used copy of it, but if you want to read it, you have to actually listen to it on audio. They don't even have it as an ebook, and unfortunately, I honestly don't recommend this. I ended up giving it 3 stars. The first half of the book, I was loving it. I was like, I can't believe this book went out of print. It's so good. Our main character was kind of reminding me of Malibu Barbie. She was like this blonde surfer girl and she knew that she was a mermaid. Her mother was a mermaid, but her mother left when she was younger and we don't really know why. And so we're starting out this book and she's struggling with this transition into becoming a mermaid. She really likes her life. She has a boyfriend and she has really good friends and they go to this really beachy school. She has a really good relationship with her dad and her brothers and she's kind of learning how she's going to handle all of this. And so that part of the book I really enjoyed, but honestly the biggest issue with this book that I had was that she cheated on her boyfriend a lot in this book, and it's just not my favorite thing to read. It will really ruin a book for me. We get this second character introduced and it wasn't like, oh, I'm torn between these 2 guys. She was dating her boyfriend and we have this new character come in who is a Silky, and he's kind of teaching her about being a mermaid and like going through this process with her, and she doesn't ever break up with her boyfriend, but she fully falls in love with this other man, kisses and hooks up with this other guy while she's still dating her boyfriend, and she isn't really in love with her boyfriend, and so it would have been so easy for her to break up with him and then she would be fine to go with the Silky character. That was one of the big issues I have with this book that really took me out of the romance, and I couldn't get into the romance of this new guy because I was like, girl, you're cheating on your boyfriend. And she even says it in the book. She's like, and I know I'm cheating on, I can't even remember the boyfriend's name, but I was like, yeah, you are. Just break up with him. There was something that happened in the climax of this book and it just didn't make sense to me. It's like we were building up to this thing and I knew that this was a series. I knew that it was a trilogy, and this big climax I feel like should have happened in a later book. She had just turned into a mermaid and the next day she's supposed to have this big fight with this villain that had been in prophecy for years, but she didn't have any training, and so I don't know, it just did not make any sense to me. And so unfortunately I did not like this. I really even wouldn't recommend it because I'm not even going to continue in the rest of the series. I just did not enjoy it. So sorry. I feel like maybe that makes a little bit more sense about why this came out of print because I just don't think it was that good. So sorry to Miss Tracy Deebs. I liked Crave. I'm sure that other series is good, but yeah, wouldn't unfortunately recommend it. But that doesn't matter because the next book that I read was Our Perfect Storm by Carly Fortune, and this was a 5-star romance. Oh my gosh, it was so good. Bawled my eyes out in this book. It was one of the sweetest, most profound romances I've ever read. This is a childhood friends to lovers romance, and normally that isn't my favorite trope. This one changed that for me because it was so good. The book opens up and it's Frankie's wedding and she's marrying this man, and we know that George doesn't really approve of her marriage to this man, and she doesn't know if George is going to show up on her wedding day, but he does, and then everything is perfect for one night, and then the next morning her fiance leaves her, literally breaks up with her with a note and is like, I can't marry you, I'm sorry. He's gone. She doesn't know the reasoning. She doesn't know what is happening. All she knows is that her fiance is gone the morning of her wedding, and her life just falls apart because she was living with him. She doesn't have anywhere to live. Her job is kind of up in the air, so she ended up having to move back in with her parents, and she is just really down bad. About 2 months after her wedding is when she was supposed to go on her honeymoon. Ex-fiance tells her that she should go on the honeymoon, and so George comes back because he is a travel journalist. He had been gone for these 2 months while she was kind of in this grieving her marriage process. He comes back and he's like, we're gonna go on this honeymoon together. I'm gonna help you heal from this breakup. And obviously they fall in love on the honeymoon. It was so good. It was a dual timeline, so it jumped back and forth between when they were little, growing up, and then it kind of led up to this point where her and George had this big fight, and you're seeing both of them developing feelings, and you see how much George loves Frankie. I wish I could explain it more, but just, you need to read this. As far as I know, it doesn't connect to any of her other books, so you don't need to read any of her other books. You could go straight into this one. Please read this. It was so sweet. It was one of those books where there was no doubt in my mind as a reader that these two were meant for each other, and you wanted them to be together so badly, and the author was able to create such good tension, and you're like waiting for them to be together and waiting for like the tension to snap, and it did, and it was so satisfying, and it was so good. I can see myself rereading this one. That's how good it is. So yeah, absolutely loved this one. The next book I read was Heart's Landing by Melanie Harlow. This was a cute romance. This is a small town romance. There were a lot of different aspects to this book, which I liked, but sometimes I felt like it kind of took away from the plot. So we have our main character, Mila, and we open up in the point of view of a ghost named Lydia. She died when she was in high school, and she's like looking at all of her friends from above, like from heaven or whatever, and it took me so off guard because I was like, there is nothing about a ghost or someone named Lydia on the back of the book. Is this like a premonition? Are they trying to tell me something? What is going on? It wasn't. It was just a random part of the book that there was a ghost. Something happens when Mila is in high school, and a bakery that she worked at burnt down, and that night she was going to confess her feelings to this boy whose family owned the bakery, and because of this fire, it like obviously wrecks that relationship, and Mila ends up leaving her hometown for college and goes to New York, and she has not been back in her hometown for a very long time. She has a very fraught relationship with her mother, which was part of this book that really got to me, and I wasn't expecting it to, but her mother is awful. Like, she treats Mila terribly, and you see Mila kind of come to terms with this relationship in this book, and it's not fully worked out by the end of the book, but I think we're also going to get more books in this series from some of the side characters, so I don't know if we'll see more of that relationship. But the boy who she was going to confess her feelings to at the beginning of the book is now the town mayor 10 years later. They're both adults, and they're reconnecting their romance in this book, and I did like it. I really liked the side characters, and I liked this town. It obviously gave all the small town quirks that small town romances normally have, and I would definitely read more books in the series. I think there was just too much going on in this book for me to fully enjoy it. There's also a little bit of a mystery because people don't fully believe that Mila was the cause of this fire, so there's this random like podcast who's trying to solve it. We get chapters in Everett's point of view, and there's also something happening with a field that he's working on. There are so many subplots in this book. I think for my own preference, I would have liked the author to hone in on maybe 2 or 3 of those subplots, but that all saying, I did enjoy this book. I would still recommend it, especially if you like small town romances. I thought this was a good one. I liked the romance, and I'm excited to read more in the series. And then I read Yesteryear, which was very off-brand for me. It's not the type of book that I would normally read. I'm more of a fantasy romance reader, but everyone was talking about this book, and I feel like I had to read it just to be involved in the conversation. There are certain books that come up a lot at the store, our bestsellers, and I feel like to be a good bookseller, I need to read these bestsellers so that I can talk about them at the store. And Yesteryear was one of those where I was just like, I'm gonna have to read this so that I can talk to people at the store about it, because everyone was asking me about it. And so I read it. I didn't like it, but I think I didn't like it because it's not my type of book. This is basically a satire about trad wives, and it was just sad. Like, the main character is awful. I felt very depressed reading this book. That's just not the type of book that I like to read. But if you are someone who enjoys literary fiction, especially if you like satire and you have big feelings about trad wives, I would say definitely go for this. A lot of my literary fiction readers at the store have read this and have really enjoyed it because they liked seeing the inner workings of our main character's mind. The premise of this book is that we have Natalie. She is a trad wife influencer, and she gets sent back in time to the 1800s, where she has to live in the time that she kind of pretends to live in current days. And this is also a dual timeline where you're going back and forth, and you're seeing her all the way starting in college and meeting her husband, moving to the farm, starting her Instagram, and how she discovers that she can make a living with this, how everything just kind of goes south. The worst part of this book for me was disliking our main character so heavily in a way that you aren't supposed to like the main character. Like, she is objectively a terrible person, and that was really hard for me because I was like, I don't like this person. I'm getting sad reading in her point of view, and so I didn't want to finish it, but I did. I'm glad I did because the ending was so interesting. I feel like I actually want to talk about the ending of this, so I'm gonna put a timestamp. Skip to this if you haven't read Yesteryear and you don't want to know the like ending plot twist, but I feel like I want to talk about it, so skip. Okay. At the end of the book, we find out that Natalie actually hasn't gone back in time. She has gone into some sort of psychosis. She has this assistant named Shannon, and something happens where Natalie's husband kind of falls in love with Shannon, and Natalie confronts her and they have this big fight, and something happens and Natalie is charged with assault against Shannon. In the aftermath of this, Natalie just snaps and goes a little crazy. And so what happens is that she doesn't travel back in time to the 1800s. She strips everything down where she is basically living in the 1800s. She forced her family into living in this situation where they had to till the farm every day. They had to wash their clothes in a wash basin. They didn't have access to doctors and to medical assistants. It's just sad. What I wasn't sure about this book was if we were just supposed to believe that Natalie was actually an awful person, or was it her circumstances that turned her into this awful person? I know in this book that she was Christian, but in my mind she was Mormon because everyone talks about how this book is based off of ballerina farms, and so I'm like, her being raised in this setting where they tell you that your only purpose in life is to be a good wife and mother, is that what laid the foundation for all these problems that arise afterwards? She got trapped in this marriage with this man who didn't want to do anything, who turned out to be a conspiracy theorist. I don't even think she finished college, so she didn't have a degree to go off and do anything on her own. When her sister says that she's going to go off and do something on her own, Natalie's basically like, you can't, you don't have a degree, you're gonna have to like bag groceries, which in reality is what would happen to Natalie too if she left her husband. I don't know, I think I just started to feel so bad for her at the end of the book because I'm like, yes, I don't think you are a good person, and I don't think you should have had kids because obviously you can't care for them and you don't have a maternal bone in your body, but I also believe that her situation and maybe how she was raised exasperated her personality in that way. If you all have read this book, I would love to know your thoughts on it because I just wasn't sure how I was supposed to feel, and I wasn't sure if I should feel sorry for her or if it really was that she was just a terrible person, or if it was just left up to your own interpretation. I don't know. This would have been a good book club book because I would have loved to see what other people thought about it and like wanted to discuss, but yeah. That was Yesteryear. If you don't normally read books that have a social commentary aspect or are satire or literary fiction, I don't know if you would enjoy it because I didn't, but I also feel like it was an interesting enough book, and it kind of made me think about the age of influencers and trad wives and all that stuff. So I don't know, read it if you want. I did not enjoy myself, but I'm glad that I can at least discuss it with people in the store now. So yeah. That was Yesteryear. Alright, next I read Rich Girl Summer by Lily Chu. So I actually half read this, half listened to this because I started reading this and I probably read to page like 200 and I was liking it. I wasn't just absolutely loving it, but I was semi enjoying myself, and I went to add it onto my Goodreads, and the only thing that would pop up on Goodreads was the audiobook, and it said that Philippa Sue was the narrator. And so I go on Audible and Philippa Sue reads all of Lily Chu's books, and if you don't know, Philippa Sue played Eliza in Hamilton, who I am just a huge fan of, and so I ended up switching over to the audiobook for probably most, I would say, until the last 50 pages, and then I ended up reading the last 50 pages of the book, and I did enjoy it. It was really fun listening to her read an audiobook because her voice is so distinctive, and I just kept being like, oh my god, Eliza's talking to me. But it was cute. This is about a girl who gets hired to be someone's long lost daughter for the summer because he thinks that his family hid a daughter from him, there was a small part of me that felt like I couldn't really connect with the characters, but I still was enjoying myself. It's set at this really like luxurious lakeside estate, and you're getting all of this family drama and politics. I really don't know what the problem was for me. I think it was really just me not connecting with the book for some reason, but I still did enjoy myself. My camera battery's dying. One moment. Okay, I'm back. I don't know how to talk about this book. I feel like there are no thoughts in my head about this book, and I don't know why, but I didn't love it, and I can't put my finger on why I didn't love it. So I feel like I'm being a really bad book reviewer right now because I just don't know what to say. I really liked the epilogue. It was a very sweet and like well wrapped up epilogue, and I would still try other books from this author. I liked it. I just didn't love it, and I can't really tell you why I didn't love it, so sorry. That's not a very good review. I'm sorry. This month I also read 2 books in my favorite chocolate chip cookie murder series. I read Velvet Cake Murder and Blackberry Pie Murder. And I have very different reviews on these. So this one came first. This is what I read first. And I love this one. This one felt very reminiscent of the rest of the series. It was cute. It was cringy. It was like a Hallmark movie. Part of the series is that Hannah is torn between 2 love interests, and she stays torn between the 2 love interests so far into the series. Like, we are literally in book 15 or 16 and she still hasn't decided between the 2 love interests, and we just know at this point that that's part of the story, is that she has 2 boyfriends and they all work together, and it's great. In this book, it kind of felt like she was going towards the love interest that I like. Like, there's one that I would much prefer her to end up with, and he's just my favorite. He's really one of my favorite characters in the book. Yeah, this book kind of led towards that, and I just really liked it. But then I read Blackberry Pie Murder, and it really wasn't my favorite, and that's the first time in this series that I have had any sort of like, I don't know if I like this. And it's because this book was very, very different from the rest of the books in the series. It's almost like someone told her that she needed to stop writing the same books over and over again, and so she tried to switch it up, but I didn't like the way that she switched it up. Hannah is our main character. She's a baker. She always solves murder mysteries, but in this one, Hannah is the suspect because she hits someone during a really bad storm. She can't see, and she loses control of her vehicle, and it hits someone and he dies. And so she's trying to prove her innocence throughout this book, and I don't know, I didn't get those like warm feelings that I normally get from this series, and I was really sad because these are obviously my favorite books. I talk about them all the time. I've read so many books in this series. I guess I understand because literally all the books are the exact same. They follow the same formula. It's almost like the author 17 books into the series was like, oh, maybe I should try something different. But I'm like, no, don't try anything different. That isn't gonna deter me from reading the rest of the series, because I will, because I just love them. But yeah, I just had to tell you all that because I feel like I'm always singing the series praises, and I still am because I still love it, but this was the one book where I was like, not a fan, but that's okay. All right, and the last book that I read this month was The Fine Art of Lying by Alexander Andrews, and this was actually the book club pick for the store. This was a good book. It was a book where not a lot happened until about the halfway mark, and then the mystery really started unfolding in the last half of the book, and so much was happening, and it ended up being a good book, but halfway in you're kind of like, I don't get it. Nothing has happened. The person hasn't even died yet. This book is about Claire, and this is another book about cheating, which is so weird that I read 2 books that had cheating plot lines in them, but they were very different. It didn't bother me as much in this one, and I'll explain that why. So this is about Claire. She has married into a really well-off family in New York. She lives on Park Avenue. Her husband is a really prominent lawyer, and she's kind of been ingrained in this life but doesn't feel like she fully fits in it still. She was an art history student, was going to get her PhD to be, I think, either a curator or art historian, and she ended up getting pregnant with her daughter, and so she has put that on hold. She has decided that she wants to finish her PhD, and she gets connected with this gallery who has been handling the sale of one of her artist's most prominent paintings. She ends up cheating on her husband with Gabriel, who owns the gallery where this piece of art is being sold, and she gets really ingrained in his world because he's the one that ends up getting murdered. Since she was the mistress, she is now #1 prime suspect, and so she decides that she's going to solve the murder for herself. I didn't enjoy the cheating in this book, especially so far in. The murder doesn't happen until literally halfway in the book, and so I felt like I was reading over 100 pages of her having this affair and her being like, I need to stop having this affair, but then she keeps doing it, and I'm just like, I'm not enjoying this. It felt different from Tempest Rising because in this book, you know that the affair is bad, and the author is telling you the affair is bad. Like, no one thinks she should be doing this, but she is, and that's becoming a very important plot line in the story. Is her relationship with this gallery owner plays a huge part in the mystery and how it all works out at the end. So it made sense for the story for her to have this affair because it needed that to push the plot along. In Tempest Rising, there was no reason for her to cheat on her boyfriend, and I felt like the author was trying to make you feel like the cheating was fine because she was in love with this other guy and she wasn't super in love with her current boyfriend, when in reality, I just wanted to be like, girl, it takes 2 seconds to break up with someone. Tell him that you're done with him, and then you can be with this other guy and it's fine. So that's why it felt different. I still don't love cheating in books, and it still bothered me in this one, but it made more sense to the story. The way that the mystery works out and how she ends up putting it all together was so interesting and so good. It kind of reminded me of like an Ashley Elston novel where there is a lot going on behind the scenes and you're untangling it piece by piece, and I just really enjoyed it. I think I would read something else by this author. She has another book called Who is Maud Dixon. I liked the way that the story ended up, and I liked the way that the mystery was solved, and so I still would recommend this. Just know that there is an affair as a main plot line, but it makes more sense to the story in this one. Those are all the books that I read in July. I am excited for August. I have a lot of books off of my summer TBR to get through. I probably won't get through them all in August, sadly, but it's gonna be my final little push before I slowly and sadly make the transition into fall. I feel like I am definitely in the minority, especially in the book community, that I don't like fall. I feel like readers and autumn is just synonymous because all of the readers, especially all the book creators that I follow, are obsessed with fall and like already posting like summer ween vlogs and everything, and that's just not me. I'm a summer girl through and through, and so you'll be getting more summer content from me throughout August, maybe even slightly into September. I will make fall content for you at some point, but still expect some summer content from me, at least for the next month or so. So hope that's okay with you all. I know I'm fully in the minority on that, but that's just who I am. So yes, that's it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. I will see you in the next video very, very soon. Bye guys.